Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And that's why we're honored to be with Dwayne Spencer, President and CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Greater Memphis, doing amazing good. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Well, we get to talk a lot about home builds and affordable home ownership and independence. There's so much to unpack, including an amazing legacy here in the Mid-South. So let's start with a little bit of history. Give us some background for Habitat for Humanity of Greater Memphis.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy. So our organization was founded here in Memphis in 1983. And fast forward, since that time, we have built more than, well, actually this fall, 600 homes for families who live somewhere between 60 to 80% AMI. They've never owned a home before. It's their first time being a home buyer. And the way we make it affordable is that we do not charge interest. And it seems like I've been here for 22 years and we've been pushing back against this notion that we give houses away. And so every conversation I have, I always start out making sure that people know that we're talking about home buyers. It's just the affordability is made possible because we do not charge interest. So when we go to closing, they have a mortgage loan just like anyone else for 30 years. There's taxes and insurance, et cetera, but no interest. Right now, we've got our mortgage payments averaging about $650 to $700 a month. Yeah. And in 2015, we migrated into doing repairs, specifically for older adults. We call it aging in place. And since 2015, we've done about 1,300 of those repairs. The clients do not pay for those interventions. And we focus a lot on accessibility and mobility. But quite frankly, because of the aging stock of the houses in our city, they usually turn into significant housing interventions where the roof and other systems are taken into consideration. And they average about $17,000 per intervention. And so while for many years it was all about home buying, we have two very distinct programs right now. So home ownership and aging in place.
Let's go ahead and dive in deeper on those. And so I love that you already kind of laid out some of the statistics and the impact. And you look at, 40-year legacy, tremendous good, but let's unpack on the affordable home ownership, the home buying side. You have a whole program in place to equip them. So when you talk about the financial literacy, understanding the mortgage process, they've got skin in the game on that side, just like you're talking about the financial, but ultimately too, you're helping to equip them with the support network in place. So talk about some of those nuances.
Yeah, so folks have never owned a home before. They're all coming from a rental situation. And so along with the general underwriting, like any of us would go through, we are helping them to think more about what it is to be a homeowner, along with getting their finances in shape or being a good neighbor, that sort of thing. And so we do usually a 12 to 15 week homeownership readiness. We used to just call it sort of financial fitness, but it's so much more than that. We might talk about savings and checkings and investments and retirement. But we also bring other professionals from the community in, from firemen to police officers, folks talking to them about creating a homeowners association, how to dial 311 for code violations, that sort of thing, just getting them ready. And I have to say, oftentimes we are building in communities that have had a lot of disinvestment. And when we put a first-time home buyer in these situations, they're not just dealing with their own housing unit per se, and this new opportunity, but really navigating everything else that might be occurring around them. And so we certainly don't have any, expertise in dealing with crime or blight, but those things can certainly have a negative impact on the families that we're trying to help lift up. And so it's quite a bit that they're dealing with in those first few years of being a homeowner.
Talk about the ripple effect of what you're creating for the community, because I think this is an important piece of the conversation, in the sense that home ownership, it stabilizes neighborhoods, revitalizes neighborhoods. When you talk about taking ownership and pride in the community, that's a piece of it. So there's a lot
Definitely.
in terms of the revitalization that's taking place that's a benefit of your efforts for everyone to be able to kind of enjoy and participate in.
Absolutely. We often say that the house is sort of this static thing that occurs and it sits on this one lot. But most often we are reclaiming vacant and abandoned lots. And we're now making them viable and useful, and a real asset to the community. And so, 600 houses, although they are not, all congregated in the same place, oftentimes we do, entire communities or build multiple homes on one street. Density matters when you're doing community development. And, along with that, sometimes we might do beautification projects. We may build houses on a street, 5 to 10 houses on one street. And where there is no building happening, we may do a beautification or a home improvement for the neighbors. And here's something that's really interesting. A lot of times, the neighbors themselves begin to come out and see the activities and begin to do their own home improvement products or restorations or rehabs. Everyone starts to get a little more pride on the street, and they want to beautify and plant and paint and just do updates. And I think that's some of the other, sort of tertiary that we bring to our work and to communities.
Let's dive in deeper on the aging in place. As you mentioned, a big part of this is helping those to remain in their homes and to have that independence. And so the repairs, and as you mentioned, you get into it and it becomes, a pretty big project. And so talk about how the seniors and the families are able to find you and kind of tap into that, and then give us a little bit more of a deep dive on how all that comes to fruition.
So let me first say, this is such a huge need in our community. Basically, at this point, the entry point is for the applicant or someone helping them to call into the hotline whenever we open that up. It is not open every day. And so when we're ready to have folks call in weeks and months prior, we will publicize that to other social service groups. And people hear about it, they're ready. At 9 a.m., they're ready to call in. And here's what happens. There are thousands of seniors who need our help. And they often flood the phone lines. Actually, they crash a lot of times. And I've had people call back and say, is this a real program? Because I can't ever get through. And it's disappointing because we want to help every one of the seniors who needs the help. But as we identify funding and we determine how many seniors we can help, we open up the phone lines, we take the applications, we call back based on the order that the calls were received, and then we start the basic, what we would call underwriting, making sure that they own the home, that they're not late on taxes or the mortgage, and that they're going to be there once we finish the intervention. What happens after that? We send our field team out to do an assessment and to make a determination about the most pressing needs in the home. Oftentimes, I would say the majority of the homes that we work on could probably use more assistance than the money that we have to help. So we have to make some decisions about what is going to have the greatest impact on this individual's health and well-being, accessibility, mobility, et cetera, for the most reasonable amount of investment. And what we also like to do is talk to all of our clients after the intervention. That includes the folks who are buying a house or our aging in place recipients. And we have a phone call with them 30 days afterwards, 1 year afterwards, and then 3 years afterwards to do, it's basically qualitative surveys, self-reported information, but it's great feedback to understand exactly how the intervention has impacted their lives. And with the home ownership, the owner's life and then also the children who are in the household.
Absolutely. A big part of this to me is the magic of being volunteer powered. And obviously you've got your team, but there's so many, I mean, especially over the legacy, thousands upon thousands of volunteers who take a vested interest in this and some sweat equity, literally, to be able to bring this to bear. So talk about the power of volunteerism for Habitat for Humanity.
The volunteerism has been at the core of what we do since day one. Even before Habitat found its way to Memphis in 1983, the organization was founded nationally in 1976 down in Georgia, and it was all volunteer-based, and it's been that way ever since. Yes, we need financial investments and contributions at the end of the day to purchase the materials and the supplies, but the folks who come out and who are willing to sweat a little bit and to put their hands physically on the project have a huge impact on our ability to serve more and more families every year. And I think, and they love it. You know, it's a wonderful way to give back to your community, and you are doing it in conjunction with the person buying the house. We don't use volunteers for aging in place. That's a whole other animal. But with the new house building, we have volunteers touch near, almost all of the houses, and they're working side by side with the families who will be moving into the homes.
Touch on the restore as well.
So the Habitat Network, there are 1,100 Habitat affiliates across the United States, and about 600 of them have something called restores. It's a very simple thing. It's a little similar to your Goodwills, but we focus mostly on home goods, used items that you can donate yourself. If you've got an office chair that you're not using anymore, you can donate it to the restore, or furniture, we in recent years have created a lot of corporate partnerships as well, where we're getting overstock sort of items. So people are so excited to be able to come into the restore. They might see an item that's still selling at one amount, and in the restore they can get it for like 75 or 80% off. And so it is set up as an ongoing fundraiser for our organization. And last year, our restore contributed over $700,000 to help us build more homes and serve more seniors with repairs. That was their net profit. It was a very good year.
Well, and I think it also, too, it's a way for the community to help, which we'll switch into that gear in just a second. But it's also for the homeowners, it's a chance for them to come in and find, obviously, the cost savings, but to be able to shop for the things that they need to be able to, make their house a home. And so I think on both sides, the restore plays a really important role in the community. And so carry that into how the community can help your efforts.
Yes. So the community can donate to the restore. You can call 901 Restore, and we will come and pick up your gently used items and bring them back and resell them. And those profits, as I just said, go back into us serving more families. You can also volunteer on the build site. This year, I think we have a goal of identifying 4,000 volunteers. We've got 12 houses that we just started in the Castelia Heights community, but our goal is to finish 31 by the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. And so once this season is over, mid-November, we will have other opportunities for folks to come out and volunteer in the springtime. We try to stay away from the winter period as well as the summer because it's too hot. But if you're one of those folks who's looking for opportunities year round, we also love to have volunteers in the restore. And when it's our corporate partners donating, here's the fun part. I went over and saw some of our team members today. You're opening boxes and it's like Christmas every day. You're just taking the item out and then helping price it, set it out. Somebody's going to come and buy it later, and it'll support our work. And so if you like that sort of project, then we've got an opportunity for you.
Touch on that in terms of for the volunteers. I think what's nice is you don't really have to have you don't have to come in with construction experience, right? And so it's a really easy way for you to plug in and learn yourself valuable skills, but you've got an amazing team. So touch on the experience needed to be a volunteer.
In particular, on the build site, people say it all the time. They'll send an email and say, I'm interested in volunteering, but I don't know anything about construction. You don't need to know any of that. We're the professionals. Our team members rarely actually swing a hammer or touch the work. We basically work with professionals on the big, services like the electrical and the plumbing and the concrete. And then we also supervise the novice volunteers who need to understand how to pick up a hammer. People think, oh, how do I hammer? They're holding it close up. Take it by the handle, that sort of thing. How to nail, simple things, how to cut a piece of siding, painting, measuring, those sort of things that we don't really think about as far as how simple those little skills and talents can sort of translate into helping us have the service done with a volunteer so that we don't have to pay a professional to do it. We would probably equate volunteer activity on a house to about $15,000 worth of savings per unit. So it really does matter. It really matters.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Carry that into then where we can go to learn more. So website, social media, phone number, where would you direct us to go to learn more and get involved?
Our website is memphishabitat.com. And then obviously the Restore is 901 Restore. That's where you can find us.
Once again, the website memphishabitat.com makes it very, very easy to plug in. And as you mentioned, when you look at the volunteer opportunities, the ways to get involved, so many, and you all do such a great job to power the good. So Dwayne Spencer, President and CEO, Habitat for Humanity of Greater Memphis, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeremy.